Hello and welcome to a new video tutorial on Vicon Shogun. Today we're going to be setting up a solving skeleton from your custom FBX so that you can see your character inside Shogun. In this video we're going to cover the following topics. First, we're going to import the FBX and create the degrees of freedom for your skeleton. Then we're going to pose it for attaching the markers. After that we're going to create solving constraints and add weights. Then I'm going to show you how to script the process. And lastly, we're going to export the VSS so that you can use it in Shogun Live. Let's get started. Okay, so there are two things that you will need for this tutorial. And the first one is obviously your custom skeleton. And the second one is a range of motion from your actor. We will be providing you with the tutorial data that I have here, and it contains two files: the custom skeleton that I'm going to be working on right now, and then the second one is the range of motion that I will then solve with my custom skeleton. So the first thing that we'll do is open Shogun, and after that we're going to be importing the FBX. So the FBX contains some other information. We don't need that. All we care about is the bones. So I'm going to select that. By the way, I did that by clicking Alt and then dragging my mouse into the part that I want to select. And then to delete it, I'm going to press Control and Alt and right click it to delete those files. The same for the take. Alt to select and then right click and Control to delete that. Okay, so we have our our custom FBX here, but we don't have a solving setup. So we need to create one into the scene. So to do that, we're going to go to Objects, Create Objects, Actor or Prop, and then Create Solving Setup. Okay, but now just to keep everything organized, I want to rename this actor group to have the actual name of my actor. So to do that, I'm just going to open another instance of Shogun, and then in this instance I'm going to load the VDF file or my range of motion here, and then I'm going to see what the name of my actor is. So I can see that my actor is called Juliet character. So I'm going to copy that name and then replace this name with that one. So, and actually I want to go to the attributes and replace the name there. Perfect. Okay, now again back to the solving setup. Right now the solving setup is just by itself here. There's nothing parented, or it's not a child of anything, and what we want is for all these bones to be part of the solving setup. So to do that, to parent it, we need to first select it and then select the character that we want it to be part of. So in that case, this will be the child of the Juliet character group. So we select it first, the child first, and then pressing Alt and Control at the same time, we select the one that we wanted to parent it to. And then back to Objects, Parent. As you can see, it's now at the very bottom. Now what we need to do is to parent that to the hips. So we want the hips to be the child of the solving setup. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to select the hips, and then after that select the parent, which is a solving setup, and with Alt and Control selected, I'm going to click on that and then go to Objects and Parent. And there we go. Underneath our character we have our solving setup, and then underneath the solving setup we have all the bones of our custom FBX. Now I wanted to show you also that you don't have to always select the child first and then the parent and then go to Objects and then click on Parent. There is actually another way to do that. So if you open the selection panel underneath this, so I'm actually just going to Control Z that so that the solving setup is not a parent of this. So as you can see, they're both separated here. So I'm going to select hips, and with the middle mouse button, drag that into the solving setup, and automatically it will be parented to that. That's another way. Okay, so let's set the degrees of freedom of our bones. So we're going to go into the attributes. We have that view here, and I'm going to start with the hips here, or your root bone. So close that, and let's check that we have all 6 degrees of freedom selected, because the root actually translates and rotates. Then the next bone is the spine here, and we want rotation as well, not translation, and it's off. Perfect. And the spine, same thing, that's good. Spine, perfect. And spine 3, perfect. And we go up to the neck, then head, and then we have something called head end. And this head end is actually an end bone. And we don't want to solve end bones, because end bones are there only to give because they're only setting the distance of where the bone ends. So we shouldn't have to have any degrees of freedom whatsoever for this bone or any other end bones. So we need to deselect those from here. And after that, we see that there are a bunch of other bones around the head, and we're not going to solve those bones because they are probably there because they're part of the hair, or maybe hats, or something that your character might have in the FBX that might be controlled by expressions, but we're not going to solve those bones here. All we care is about the human bones. So I'm going to turn the degrees of freedom of the rest of the bones as well, so that the solver doesn't solve them. And as you can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, and then again some more bones. So I'm just simply going to select them. They go all the way here to the hair and then the shoulder. So yeah, from this point all the way up to front leaf 1. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. Simply press Alt and then drag my mouse to select the bones. Now if you see I have head end selected, if you don't want that bone selected, you can simply just, still pressing Alt, press Shift as well and click on the bone that you want to deselect. And there you go. So in this case, I want to turn off those degrees of freedom. Now, I want you to notice something. By default, this button will be pressed. We want this button to be pressed so that it affects all the rest of the bones that are selected. So with that button selected, I'm going to uncheck these boxes. And now these bones will no longer have any degrees of freedom. Okay, the next step is the left shoulder, left arm, left forearm, left hand. Well, actually, in the forearm, we don't want to keep these 3 degrees of freedom because, I mean, let me show you what I mean. If we open the rotate manipulator, we know that that an elbow can never do something like that. So we might just want to tell the system that there is no need for you to try to solve that shoulder if you can't move that way. So a shoulder will only be able to move like this, is a hinge, right? So in this case, this is the Z axis, so we want it to rotate on the Z axis. By the way, the reason I know that is because RGB corresponds to XYZ, so RGB XYZ. So in this case, the Z is the blue, and that's the one I'm going to keep selected. But I'm going to turn off the other 2. After that, we have the hand, and in here we can have those 3 degrees of freedom there. But then again, we are presented with an end bone and some other bones that we don't need to solve here. So again, let's select them and turn them off. Alright, so the next one, oh, we have more bones all the way to here. So I'm going to select those as well, dragging, and turn those degrees of freedom off. There's another one here, left forearm roll, that we don't really need. Turn that off. Another bone we don't need. And then back to right shoulder. Okay. Right shoulder, right arm, then right forearm, same thing. It's rotating only in Z. Control Z. And delete, sorry, only leave it in Z. And then right hand, 3 degrees of freedom, right hand in, nothing like that we need. So I'm going to select all those, just like we did for the left arm, and turn off the degrees of freedom for that. Nothing like that. We don't need any of the feathers, and any of that we don't need, so let's turn off the degrees of freedom for those bones. What's next? Left upper leg. Okay, so I want you to take a look at something. It may seem that the legs are looking towards the left side of the body, and actually that's just the geometry of the bones. So if we just select these bones here, we can actually, except this one, so Alt Shift and deselect that one. We can actually, if we show advancing the attributes, we'll have a geometry twist that will be pointing at a particular angle. So we can just simply rotate, I think maybe 90 degrees, probably. There we go. So that everything will be facing to the front. And if you want, you can actually change or rotate the geometry. If you want every single one of the bones to be facing your way. So if you want to do that for the spines as well, you can just change the geometry twist to -90, 180 degrees it will be in this case. There we go. And you can continue on for all of the bones that you want. If you want these ones to be facing as well, some people like to keep them facing up, that's fine as well. This is purely for visualization. It doesn't affect anything or rotations or pre-translations of the bones. It's just the way Shogun displays the bones. Okay, sorry, moving on. Left upper leg. So the leg moves in those 3 degrees of freedom. But now this one with the knee is the same situation as the elbow. We only want it to move in one particular axis, right? That way. So we turn off the other degrees, the X and the Y, and we only leave it at Z. Then this one as well, 3 degrees of freedom. But then that one is the same situation. We don't need the end. Okay. And then we have some other bones that we're going to turn off the degrees of freedom for. Yeah. And we move on to the right leg. So 3 degrees of freedom, perfect. Right leg. And then this one's only rotating at Z. This is another hinge. And right foot to base. And then end bone, we turn this off. And none of that is going to be left for the solder to solve those bones. There's a tail. Yes, we don't want to solve that bone. Actually, there you go. Okay, and there you have it. So let's save this VSS. So file, export, and then I want it set as a VSS. Find a place where you want to save it. In this case, I'm just going to save it here. I'm going to call this Juliet character. And perfect. Now I have my VSS.